All right, I'm Aaron Berlin. I'm the county chairman for.
It's still connecting.
Okay.
Need a hotspot?
I think so.
Hey, Raj, give him a hotspot there. Harney County's online.
Y'all ready to go?
It's on Jim's iPhone. Go back, hey, go back to Facebook. Go back.
I see cable Wi-Fi.
Look, you have to search Jim's iPhone.
Make a
Jim's
difference.
iPhone.
My password.
Shouldn't need one. Does it have
Just hit enter.
It's Jim's iPhone. It needs a password.
try
We're here in Forsyth County, getting ready to do the NCGOP chairman's debate, and we're waiting for the main Facebook live feed to hook into the internet. This is Jill Osborne. She's the moderator. Aaron Berlin, who's the
All right,
chair.
quick announcement while they're doing this. If you are not already a registered delegate, you still have the chance to register to be a delegate to vote. They are all going to wow you and press you to where you are going to go down to Charlotte and register as a delegate Saturday morning so that you can vote. So if you're not, you have to be a registered delegate to vote for the state chairman, but you can do it Saturday morning.
It's in Concord here.
Concord. Thank you. Concord.
Only if you're a delegate.
Only if you're a delegate.
And that's just for Forsyth County.
Just for Forsyth County, yes.
Please stand by.
Emory Yates.
That's all right.
What happened? Nothing.
And Emory Yates, if you just stand up real quick far away, she is actually running for vice chair for state as well. Is that correct?
I got it.
I already got 3 people.
There's a.
Go back to
Get back to.
All right, looks like we're getting started. Zan's online. Maggie's online. Hello, Zambone. Hello, Maggie Samrock. John Dismukes is on from all the way from Wilmington. From Wilmington.
It is. In 3, 2, 1. It's connecting.
You could just go to Harnett County, do a watch party from Harnett County.
Yes.
You got a good signal?
I have 6 people.
You might want to run it off of, you can run it off of his.
Oh,
Sorry, guys. Technical Why don't you go ahead and just switch it out?
Otherwise, y'all said you're gonna look like this.
Yeah. Shot. Yes. That was it.
I like t-shirts.
Is it not sitting?
hello, Vinny. We're on.
All right,
Hello,
welcome everybody. Good evening. My name is Aaron Berlin. I'm the Forsyth County GOP chairman. We're excited tonight to have our 3 candidates running for state chairman, John Lewis, Michael Watley, and Jim Womack here. Ms. Jill Osborne is going to be moderating our discussion and questions, and I know you want to hear from them, so I'm going to go ahead and turn over the time to her.
Thank you, Aaron. These 3 candidates will be answering questions in alphabetical order, and we will rotate who answers each question first. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and as Aaron said, they are vying to become the next chairman of the North Carolina Republican Party. All right, so Mr. Lewis, you're up first. Organizations from Facebook to Major League Baseball are using big data and analytics to improve outcomes. Do you have an analytics plan for our state party, and will local parties like ourselves be able to use its benefits to improve election outcomes?
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for having us all up here today. Back in 2014, when I was on the Central Committee, we met down on Bald Head Island. This is just before the election with Tom Tillis, and he was behind in the race. Then Chairman Claude Pope and Todd Poole, the Executive Director, we did research on analytics and companies that we can use to get data points, and we found great information and great services, and that's what we're going to continue to look for. Things have changed since 2014. I mean, we're talking 5 years later. I can tell you that the voter vault system, how many of y'all have ever used voter vault? It's now data center, the RNC's data center. Now that's got some great information. That's going to drive a lot of what we do as far as targeting and micro-targeting voters and what we need to do as far as outreach. We need to be able to use that data and pass that along to the local parties. And when I say pass that along, that means training the county chairman to make sure that you train your precinct chairman to be able to have access to those systems. You can go in and identify by voting proclivity, are they 4 or 4 voters, 3 or 4 voters, by certain polling data and certain lists that they're on, and you can start micro-targeting the individuals that we're looking to get to turn out to vote. That's going to be vital for us to use. And it's going to be vital for us to make sure the training goes down towards the precinct level so that the precinct chairman, who are the boots on the ground right there in the precinct, are able to know exactly who we need to get to turn out to vote. A lot of these elections come down to 1 or 2 votes per precinct in North Carolina. And the use of data and the analytics that's in data center and some of the other services that we can access are going to provide us with a substantial resource to get out the vote and make sure that our candidates are successful in November.
Great. So, Michael Watley, and I would also like to thank the party for having us here today. So, just to give you a little of flavor in terms of the importance of this, so Gaston County, where I come from, and you know, when we talk about data, and we talk about data flow between the presidential campaign and the RNC, and of course they're merging their data operations this time, so it's the Trump RNC data center. That needs to be a two-way street, right? So we need to be able to get the best data from that program. We need to wheel it out and get it to the counties. We need to make sure that we're working with the candidates and with other groups that need that data for their door knocking, for the phone calls, right? Because we can't waste our time having people knock on the wrong doors or make calls into the wrong numbers. So, and once that data is accumulated on the ground where folks are reporting what's going in, then that goes back up, right, through the party to the national database, and we need to make sure that that continues to be a one-way street. So or a two-way street, excuse me, because a lot of times once that data goes up, it never comes back down, and we just need to make sure. And one of the things that I've talked about with folks over at the RNC and the Trump campaign is that they're evaluating 4 different applications in terms of vendors to be able to work on iPhones, work with iPads, work with ability to be in the field, and make sure that that data is going to be available for them. Once they have made the determination in terms of what they think is going to be the preferred vendors for it, we need to be able to get those folks down here and have training with the county parties and be able to make sure that everybody understands this is the system that we're going to be using as we move forward in the 2020 cycle.
Hi, my name is Jim Womack. I'm the chairman of the Lee County Republican Party. In my second career after I retired from the military, after 20 years as a combat arms officer, I became an IT specialist. I was an executive and a salesman in the business, and I actually architected the health information system for the state of North Carolina, running all your health departments today. I understand big data and analytics. There are 2 types of application software. There's database software, and then there's application software. Application software is like Nation Builder, which we're trying to deploy statewide at party expense. And then there's mobile or Red Advantage, which is a mobile application you can use on your smartphones. And data supports those, big data supports those. It's my intent to make sure that you have a full cohort of data to support your business needs in transactional processing during the election cycle, which means that you will have a mobile advantage that will have access to the most relevant recent data from RNC and the Trump campaign. You'll have everything you need to know about your voters when you go door to door. You'll have, in Nation Builder, I intend to expand what we've been doing up to this date to give you a full cohort of data. Right now, you're receiving from the Republican Party or Republicans. You're not getting unaffiliated, and you're not getting the Democrat voters. And what you need is that. You need to manage that, because if you do like I do in Lee County, you want to convert unaffiliated and conservative Democrats to Republicans and use them effectively. So we're going to provide that for you. As a business intelligence specialist as well, I did data warehousing in my second career. And data warehousing is very important. That's what you use to do queries into a massive database that identifies, answers business questions that you have for the party, such as where do we need to spend our advertising revenues. And what I will do for the first time in the party is we will actually build a data warehouse that builds on the data that we're getting back from contact management and voter information, and we will actually target where we do our ad buys and where we are building in social media. So those are just a few things that we can do with big data and analytics.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that North Carolina has gotten a lot of national media attention. How will you restore trust in our good brand with party activists and with the public at large?
Well, clearly put, we need a reset in Raleigh, right? We need party leadership focused on honesty, transparency, communications, and metrics, right? We're in a situation right now where we have a chairman who is under indictment, and we are looking forward to this election because we have got to have that reset moving forward. In addition to all of the election activities that we're going to have, and this is a top 4 state for President Trump, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, you have to win those in order to win re-election. We're going to have the most expensive Senate race in the country. We're also going to have a top 2 pickup opportunity for Republican governors behind Montana, because North Carolina costs 10 times as much as Montana, so we could be number 1, right? But we're also going to be hosting the convention here, right? So there is a lot of spotlight that's going to be coming to the state. And I think one of the things that we need to do is make sure as we're moving forward, coming out of this convention, is that we are going to have all of our programs lined up and going in the right direction. We also need a communications plan that is more than just responding to a 24-hour news cycle. We need to be able to get all of our messages out on time, to the right places, to the right people, with the right messages on a continual basis that's going to be metric driven. So I think that when we look at overall, we need to keep our house in order, right? We also need to have an audit of our finances. It is in our party plan of organization that will have an annual audit. That has not happened for 3 years. And one of the first things, if not the first thing that I will do as chair is go into the executive committee meeting on Monday and demand that we conduct an audit and that we're going to operate ethically moving forward.
August 11th, 1879, Major General John M. Schofield told the Corps cadets at West Point that discipline stems from a corresponding spirit in the breast of the commander. And what we've lacked in the party for many years is discipline and integrity and reliability. What we've got is a brand of the party that's been destroyed, or at least severely damaged. And we ought to restore that brand and that belief in the party that we are the party of the people. What we've done, what's happened in the scandals of late is that people have lost confidence in the party. That's why you don't have donors at the lowest levels of the party. That's why you don't have the business class trusting us with their money and their investments, and the big money donors, sitting on the sidelines because they don't believe in our brand. They don't believe that their money's going to be well spent. In fact, they might even end up in a federal indictment. So we have to restore that brand, and that's done through effective communications in social media, in mainstream media, in letter writing, and in face-to-face where you go around the state. That's something I will bring to the party. I'm going to restore that brand because I'm going to be everywhere. I'm going to be traveling as your full-time chairman. I'm going to be all over the state of North Carolina communicating that we are the party of traditional American values, Judeo-Christian principles, that we are the party of the people that believe in life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the enjoyment of the fruits of your labor. That's what we have to do. We have to have leadership from the top, leading from the front, someone that people can be inspired by, motivated by, someone that can lead this party back towards trustworthiness and nobility that we have in the past. We haven't got that today. We need a leader that's going to be out there, visible, and able to communicate effectively through all the various channels. And I intend to do that beginning June the 10th, right after the election is over. We're going to hit the ground running, and we're going to do that for our special elections this fall. We're going to do it for your municipal elections, especially here in Forsyth County. We're going to do it in the 2020 campaign.
It starts in meetings like this, sitting down in a room, the chairman sitting on a stool much like this, and you sitting there and just saying, what's important to you? Let's talk. Let's have an open dialogue. Let's actually engage and discuss what's going on with the party. That's how you build confidence. That's how you build trust. You've got to actually sit here and be willing to look at the members of this party in the eye, ask them what's important to them, ask them what their concerns are with what's going on with the party, and give straight, honest answers. Not flowery debate, not flowery rhetoric, not a bunch of things that make you feel good. But let's just talk open and honest and talk about what's going on. What are your concerns? What can we do better to help you to win elections? Because folks, at the end of the day, that's what the Republican Party is here for. It's to win elections. Now, we are fortunate that the big donors haven't abandoned the North Carolina Republican Party. Last year was record-breaking fundraising efforts. We spent more money last year than I can recall when we spent in prior elections. Folks, the people are there. What they're waiting to do is to have a leader come to them and say, hey, I'm here to lead this party moving forward into 2020. You can have confidence in me. You can have confidence in the way that I'm going to spend the money and with the direction that this party is going to take. That's why this election is so important. We've got to make sure that through this election, we show confidence in our leaders, and that we need to have that confidence be reflected upon the folks in the room. But it's got to start with open dialogue and talking and discussing what issues we're facing.
And this kind of leads into the next question. President Trump talks a lot about fake news and the negative media coverage. How do you combat that when you are dealing with a 24-hour news cycle and you're trying to get the message out, to your constituents and throughout the entire state? How do you let North Carolinians know about President Trump's good things that he's doing that's not covered in the news cycle?
Okay, so our president, Donald J. Trump, changed the way media operates. He drives the news cycle now, and he does it through Twitter. He reinvented communications. And God bless him for doing that, because he showed us that there's a better way of doing it. We don't just have to take a back seat to the news media. We've got the ability now to create our own channels of communications. And it's something that the Republican Party of North Carolina just hasn't taken advantage of. Folks, look, I've got a YouTube channel, I've got an Instagram account, I got a Facebook and Twitter account. I'm following the lead of our president. I've got a Twitter account, I retweet and tweet his materials. I add commentary to it. That's the same sort of thing the Republican Party of North Carolina needs to be doing all the time. We need to be communicating in every channel. If you want to reach the over 50 crowd, you got to be in YouTube. If you want to reach the younger generation that's now in college, emerging post-millennials, you got to be in YouTube. Facebook for the over 50, YouTube for the younger generation. You got to be in Instagram to share videos, and you've got to insist that every channel is being used continuously from the party, and that means ad buys. That means video transmissions, much like we're doing tonight with Facebook Live. We have to use all those channels, and by communicating a message that is on target with our values, I think is what we got to do. That will convince the public in North Carolina, the voting public, that we really mean what we say. We also have to ensure that we're driving our ad buys through analytics that we do in the party. So if we find that something's resonating with the voters, then we use that to immediately and agilely target the voters through those channels of communications. The last thing is we just have to have a brand of the party that actually people can identify with. And again, I go back to traditional American values and Judeo-Christian principles. Right now, the media makes us out to sound like we're not any different than the Democrat Party. We've got to make sure that they know what we do.
The first thing we need to do is make sure that we're controlling the narrative. Right now, a lot of what's going on and a lot of this driving things here in North Carolina, we're being reactionary. The governor comes out and does something and we react to it. We need to make sure we're controlling the narrative, that we set the parameters of what the discussion is going to be. So we have got to have a communications plan going forward that we are ahead of the news cycle as far as we're creating the news. We release statements that try to show the governor reacting to us. We don't want to be reacting or responding to whatever the governor or what the Democrats in the General Assembly have done. We've got to make sure we control the narrative and make sure that we are targeting our narrative, so that when we're releasing statements, we can release targeted statements for what's going on in Mecklenburg County. Not just dealing with what happens within the Beltway. That's kind of the things that happens to a lot of folks when they get to Raleigh, is they get focused on what's going on in the Beltline. We've got to start making our messages targeted for Mecklenburg County, for Buncombe County, for New Hanover County. Make sure that we are releasing statements that are relevant to all of those communities, so that we can control the narrative, not only coming out of the News and Observer and the articles and the papers out of Raleigh, but we're controlling it out of the Charlotte Observer and all the papers across the state and the news media. But we've got to make sure that we are being thoughtful and deliberate in what we're doing. We cannot sit here and just go knee-jerk reaction to things that happen. We've got to make sure we think it through. One of the toughest things in politics, and one of the things that makes politicians, the great politicians, great, is that they have the ability to think, well, if I do this, what are the next two steps that follow? And we've got to make sure that our communications plan does exactly that. We're going to try to control the narrative, and we're going to release this statement. But then what are they going to do? What's their response going to be? And what are our next two steps going to be? So that not only do we control the narrative from the beginning, we control it the second and third steps down the way, so that we can continue to control and get our message out.
Yeah, I think we need to look at communications across the state on a number of different levels. First off, we need to be proactive. We need to say these are the messages that we have got to communicate into these different communities and into these different voting blocks across the state. We need to be reactive, because there are definitely going to be times where Governor Cooper is going to say something stupid, or the National Democrats are going to say something stupid, and there is an opportunity for us to respond. But the key is, what are the overall messages that we as a party need to deliver to the voters over the 18 months that we're going to have coming out of this election for chair? And how many times do we have to drive those messages home for them? And that is going to be able to utilize traditional media, press releases, interviews with reporters, planting stories, doing radio shows, being on TV when that's warranted. And there are going to be occasions where the 24-hour news cycle will allow us to put one of our key messages out there. But we also have to work on social media. And we need to be able to have a vehicle to carry out the messaging that we want, right? President Trump and the White House and the campaign will send out weekly talking points. This is the message for the week. We need to be able to take that and we need to be able to synthesize it with what we're getting from the governor's campaign, what we're getting out of the House caucus, the Senate caucus, and put that into a package where we can communicate out to the voters and say, hey, here is the message for the week. And here are the talking points for the week. You know, just tomorrow, or Wednesday, excuse me, they're going to have the vote at the Capitol on the Right to Life bill, right? We need to make sure that statewide, we have Republicans that are out pushing on all of those things. Last thing that I will say is that we need to build a TV studio in the party headquarters. We need to be able to have videos that we will create, content that we will create, and also commercials that we can do for the General Assembly and other candidates, and be able to get that messaging out in a visual way, not just in terms of writing and social media. Thank you.
Kind of what we're doing right here today.
You got it.
County. Let's change to finances. Does the state party need to improve its fundraising efforts? And how do you plan to apply the state party's financial resources during your term?
You'll never hear me say the state party has ever raised enough money. We are always in need of money. Politics it's expensive. And getting our message out and supporting our candidates costs a great deal of money. But at the end of the day, we've got to raise the money. We have got to get out there and shake the trees and get the money that's needed, not only to run the state party, but to support our candidates. The budget for the state party every year is approximately, even in a down year like 2019, where there's no statewide elections, is about $1 million. When we go into 2020, we're going to be looking at needing to raise between $2.5 and $4 million. So those are things that we need to do. We've got to raise the money. One of the things that I plan to do or want to do with the money that we raise is to hire a full-time coordinator for our judicial candidates. Someone that can coordinate between all of the egos of all of the consultants and the campaigns that are there for all our Supreme Court candidates, our Court of Appeals. So that person can coordinate their efforts to make sure that we don't send both Justice Newby and Judge Berger Jr. to Asheville the same weekend. One goes to Asheville, one goes to Wilmington. You know, these candidates don't raise as much money as, say, a U.S. Senate race. So every dollar they get matters. And every dollar they can save by sending one to one part of the state and another judge to another part of the state is going to just duplicate their efforts without duplicating the expenses. So that's one of the first things that I want to make sure that we do, is that we spend the money to do that, because if you don't believe that the sue to you blue is real, then you're fooling yourselves. Ken Raymond, a good friend of mine who's on the State Board of Elections now, we were on the State Board of Elections and Ethics Enforcement last year. He has seen, he's been part of the litigation that goes on, that how the Democrats are going to use the court system. So we have got to make sure that we win these judicial seats, and that is one of the biggest things that I want to spend the money on next year, so that we can protect the courts and start bringing them back to our side.
So we need to look at fundraising in 3 different areas, right? So we need a low-dollar program. We do not have a low-dollar program here for the state party. But when you go to a Trump rally, you'll see on the podium sign, text Trump to, and it has a number there, right? That invites you into a low-dollar online fundraising program. The Democrats have Act Blue. Bernie Sanders is raising millions of dollars online in small dollar increments. And once a donor participates in that program, they are very likely to continue to participate in that type of a program going forward. There's no excuse for us as a party not to have that in place right now. Secondly, we do have the donor class, and it is very important that we have folks who are able to contribute high dollars, you know, whether that's $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever, you know, to the party to support their ideas in terms of economic freedom and where they want to go as a class. Extremely important that we keep those guys on board. I've had a number of discussions with folks there. They have said that they will re-engage with the party if I'm chair, and then that we got to keep that on board, but we can't be wholly dependent on it. The last thing I'll say is in terms of other opportunities. When I was Elizabeth Dole's chief of staff, we got on a plane, we flew down to Nashville, Tennessee, and Senator Dole was the keynote speaker for the Tennessee GOP Black Tie Gala Dinner. They raised $1 million that night. They raised $1 million for the 10 previous years. God only knows how much they're raising now. Why aren't we doing that? We are a top tier state for for the presidential, top tier for the Senate race, top tier for the governor's race. We can get high level political operatives to come down here and participate in efforts for the party. And then I will say this, just last week I was over to dinner with Vice President Pence. They raised $1.3 million for the Trump Victory Program, and we need to talk to those candidates and say, hey, one event like that with the president, with the vice president here in North Carolina should not be too much to ask if we have the apparatus in place to be able to handle the event and take that money and spend it wisely.
Okay. So fundraising is done on a number of channels. And like my opponent just said, there are 3 channels. The donor class, there are several things that we're not capitalizing on today. In that class, we have ability to do strategic partnering. We haven't done that effectively. This is the home of NASCAR in North Carolina, and we haven't strategically partnered with NASCAR, the only right-wing sport that exists, other than maybe professional wrestling. Okay, and I don't know that we can strategically partner with John Cena. So, but we are going to work on the NASCAR partnership because that's mutually beneficial, both for NASCAR and for the Republican Party. It's a party that most of the race teams identify with. Another area is in wine tasting. I mean, Eric Trump is big into vineyards and wine tasting. Why don't we work with the Trump campaign about doing some of the wine tasting tours here, which are big dollar fundraisers? They do that Duplin County wines. I think it would be great to have the Trump family come down here and partner with us to raise money, and we'll get a cut of that. There are a number of strategic partnerships we can do that will brand the party. Look, I'm a salesman, folks, and what people want for their money is value. They want to know that what they're buying is something they need, and they want to know that they get value out of it. So our value proposition to the business class of the party, the second tier, is that we are the party of limited government, lower regulations. And we've got to convince them that with their investment into our candidates and our party, that they're going to get value back out of that investment. And we can do that. We'll build a pipeline, we'll go to the business class, and with that, especially in the districts and down at the county level. And lastly, folks, last year as a Lee County chairman, I raised $8 per Republican in my county. If the state did that, that would be $16 million a year for party operations. That's unprecedented in this state. Folks, we can do it. And my #1 fundraiser was a Democrat. I used him. He liked selling gun raffle tickets. He sold the fire out of them and financed my candidates. When you've arrived as a salesman, well, you've got the Democrats working for you. And that's what you want to do. That's what we're going to do in the state of North Carolina. We're going to make them work for us.
And speaking of Democrats, Hillary Clinton put $100 million into the state of North Carolina during the 2016 election, and Forsyth County definitely saw the ramifications of that. How can we improve urban areas in the next election cycle?
Well, I think the first rule is engagement, right? And we need to have a permanent presence in the urban areas. And I've had a number of different discussions with Aaron here, with Chris Turner down in Mecklenburg County, and Darren over in Wake County, and others around the state to talk about what we need to be doing as a party. And the answers are universal. We need a permanent presence there. You know, every cycle we have folks that come in from the victory centers. We open up those offices. They get to learn the neighborhoods, they get to learn the people, they get to go through the election cycle, they get patted on the back and told, thank you, we appreciate it. And then 6 months or 12 months later, we start that whole process over again. So we do need a permanent presence, I think, in these cities. We also need to have minority outreach programs that are not window dressing. I think we need to be engaged in those communities as we're moving forward with it. We have a great message. President Trump has done a fantastic job unleashing the economy. We have record low unemployment among Hispanics. We have record low unemployment against for African Americans. And I think that it is important for us on an economic freedom basis. Hey,
You're bringing down the house.
we're bringing down the house. So we need to be able to do that. We also need to understand that the data and the information that we will be getting and wheeling into these counties, because at the end of the day, the county parties are the backbone of the Republican Party. And we need to be working with those chairs in those counties and saying, what else do you guys need? And we need to be able to provide that for them. Thank you.
Okay, some people talk about having a presence and other people do it. Okay, and that's what we did in Lee County. 6 years ago, we found a building with 8,000 square feet, and we created a headquarters with a vision. We have the largest state headquarters and the largest Republican headquarters in the state in Lee County, little old Lee County. 8,000 square feet, and almost every room is occupied. We're doing something. We got a bar, we got a dance floor, we got a barber shop, we got a prayer room. Folks, we got it all. And we're right in the middle of downtown Sanford. A year-round presence. We keep the headquarters open. We've got Democrats coming in there and converting to our party. We actually register, I think, more Republicans in our headquarters than they do down at the Board of Elections, because we're in the most prominent site downtown Sanford. Look, that's what I want to do statewide. We talked, my opponent mentioned Aaron a minute ago. I've been talking to Aaron as well about trying to find him a headquarters here in Forsyth County. We've actually got one Republican, prominent Republican in the party that's willing to donate a building, or at least to make it available to you. If it doesn't suit your needs, then we'll find one somewhere else. I know how to find a building. I know how to get it for good value and to help you understand what you can do to become part of community engagement. Now, another part about improving performance in the municipal areas is, folks, you got to be communicating in the channels that your targets are operating in. For example, Black Urban Radio. Folks, we don't do it. We haven't been buying Black Urban Radio. And let me tell you something. In urban radio, you can reach a lot of folks. And we just haven't been doing the ad buys there and hitting them with hard-hitting messages which really convey where we are and the values that those folks will align with. The other thing you got to do is you got to do community engagement. Is you got to use pamphlets and handouts that communicate your message, something they can take away. There's a pamphlet I've got here with me tonight called "Make Black America Great Again." It's from the Black Americans to elect the president. Okay, those pamphlets are really good, very effective at trying to communicate the Republican Party values, the party that Black Americans used to belong to many years ago. The same sort of thing with the Latin crowd. We've got Latin flyers printed in Spanish that will help Latin voters understand what our values are. So those are just a few of the things that you can do to improve your performance.
I'm gonna go back a couple questions. Remember when when we were asked how we build confidence in the brand and confidence in the party? All right, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that we're gonna pay for headquarters in all the metropolitan areas. I'm not gonna say that that's the goal to do it, because realistic folks, we've had great fundraisers over the last 15, 20 years that have run the state party, and they never could come close to raising money that would be required to run headquarters that had permanent presences in Mecklenburg County, in Forsyth County, in Buncombe County, New Hanover County. And telling you that that's what I'm gonna do is just not truthful, because we spent more money up here than we could raise in the next decade to do all the things you've heard. What I'm gonna tell you is, I'm gonna be straight with you. We're gonna target our messaging to the urban areas. We're gonna make sure that we are actually engaging with these folks. I've gone out and said this before, that the race between the three of us has never gotten personal, but we have got to make politics personal. When we go into the urban communities, we've got to make sure that we go to the various different stakeholders and we engage with them and talk with them. Not talk at them, not tell them why they should be Republicans, not tell them how they've been Republicans all along and you've just not voted our way. We sit down and we talk with them and find out what's important with them. When they start talking to us about what's important with them, we can then explain how that fits into the Republican mold. We get them to buy into the Republican brand. We get them to buy into what we are doing. And we lead them down the path to realization that they realize that they're Republicans. But we've got to make sure we do that with targeted messaging. We can't use the same messaging in Harnett County as we do here in Forsyth County. If you don't use the same messages and the same kind of information that we to get people to the polls as we would in Montgomery County, as we would in Buncombe County. It's targeted messaging, which goes back to the analytics that we need to use in one of the earlier questions. But we certainly can't sit here and make promises of spending an endless supply of money, because that's just not honest.
Name a leader, living or dead, whom you admire.
Well, I tell everybody at the start of all of my candidate speeches that the person I most admire is my Lord Jesus Christ, Savior of the world and sovereign God of the universe. I mean, he's one to admire. His teachings, his biblical instructions are beyond reproach. They're inerrant. They're timeless. These are fundamental principles that should be followed, that are followed by our party and espoused in our party platform, in their expression through Judeo-Christian principles, and that's what contrasts our party and me from the Democrats. Folks, the Democrats are the party that's running away from God, and they're running away from from the value of life. They want the government to be your nanny state and be in charge of everything. They want them to be your God. They want your government to be your God. And that's what they do. And that's why we're different. And that's why I'm different, because I was raised to believe differently. Jesus Christ is a great leader. He's a leader that taught us not to hate on each other, but to love each other. And that's a message that's really appropriate for the party. We got to be a party that is of the people, by the people, for the people. We got to be a party that folks will look up to and admire and cherish. We sit in church. It's the same values in church that they're at home. We're the party of families, and it says that the family that prays together stays together, and that's what the Republican Party needs to be. We need to be the party that all works together, that doesn't hate anything, but it despises the behavior of the left, and it messages the behavior of the left, so people understand that we are different, that the two parties are different, and that we, as a party, are the party they can believe in, the party that the framers intended when they created the Constitution of the United States.
Well, Teddy Roosevelt, not only is a Republican, but a man who gets shot while giving a speech and is then able to finish the speech. You got to admire that. He was an outdoorsman. He was a military, I guess you'd call him a hero. He was a military leader, political leader, an outdoorsman. He preserved so many of the natural beauties of this nation. He contributed a great deal to this country. And so, again, I keep going back to any man that can finish a speech after getting shot. That's impressive.
So I would just add, and I'll echo Jim, in terms of being a man of faith and having spent time at Wake Forest, at Notre Dame, having degrees in religion and theology was a doorway for me. I also am a member of the vestry of my church, and I do believe that Jesus Christ is the leader that we do need to emulate. In terms of political opportunities, so in 1984, the first political campaign that I ever worked on, I was knocking on doors for Jesse Helms. And then when I was in law school, I had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and do a legal internship with Senator Helms. And it was absolutely amazing to see a guy who taught you how to point your political compass due north and never deviate from that, right? We learned many things from Senator Helms, and I will never forget that experience. Learned that you are going to get hit if you do the right thing. You will get hit if you do the wrong thing, so you might as well go ahead and do the right thing and take the hit. I would also add that President Donald Trump is an absolutely amazing leader in a different vein, because like Jesse Helms, who would stand up and lose a vote in the Senate, 1-99, more than any other Senate in history, President Trump was able to stand up and say, we need to build a wall, when everybody said that was outrageous. He said that we need to get NATO to pay for more money, and everybody said that was outrageous. He said that we were going to put America first, and everybody said that was outrageous. I am very excited about my time with the president and the campaign. When I got a call from Trump Tower in 2015 asking if I would help Donald Trump down here in North Carolina, I said yes, and I don't regret that for a second. I had an absolutely fantastic experience working throughout the 2016 campaign, being a member of his transition team, and was ready to roll back into the campaign prior to the legal issues that we've encountered with the party, and feeling the need that in order to help President Trump, I needed to get in this race and make sure that we're going to deliver the votes for him in 2020.
Finally, a party chairman does not need to be an ideologue, but instead a leader who gets Republicans elected. Tell us how your background will make you an effective executive.
You're first. Oh, okay. I lost track of where we were. Temperament. That's vital. You've got to realize that the Republican Party anywhere, especially here in North Carolina, is made up of various different stakeholders. And you've got to have a state party chairman that's willing and able to talk to all of those folks and has an open door for all of them. If you start putting your ideology out there and start making it all about the chairman, then you're going to start excluding some of those folks. They're not going to feel comfortable coming to talk with you, or they just will not show up when it comes time for game day. So you've got to make sure that you're there ready to talk with folks and that you are not putting your personal political opinions out there, because we have got to all work together. We can't have a state party chairman that's looking to pit one stakeholding group at the party against the other. So we've got to make sure that we are open and transparent, and that we're welcoming to folks all across the spectrum from all aspects of the Republican Party. I think that's the first thing that you've got to do. The second thing is the experience. You got to have experience to understand how things work, so that when folks from the precinct and the counties come up to the districts and then come up to the state, you understand how the structure works. You know how things are supposed to go. You know how the information is to be transmitted out. You understand election day activities. You've got to have the experience to be able to do that. And those are the parts, a lot of that is I've gone around and talked to folks. I've been a precinct chairman, a county chairman, a district chairman. I currently serve you as I serve you as assistant legal counsel, and I currently serve you as general counsel. I've served on the State Board of Ethics and Election and Fort with Ken Raymond out here. I have seen virtually everything that this party is going to face, and I've been able to handle it, and I've addressed it. So I'm not going to be surprised going into 2020 with things that are going to happen. So what we've got, I believe that I have the temperament, and I believe that I have the experience that's going to make me the most effective executive for the North Carolina State Party moving forward.
So I could not agree more with the premise that what we need is to elect Republicans, and that's really what the party chair is going to be about. Look, I have been a volunteer and an intern with Jesse Helms. I have been a chief of staff for Senator Elizabeth Warren. I had the opportunity to serve President George W. Bush in his administration as a senior official at the Department of Energy after serving on the Florida recount team for 34 days in Broward County, which was the only county that finished the recount and protected his 537 vote margin. And of course, I had the opportunity in the 2016 cycle to help Donald Trump here in North Carolina on the ground. It is all about electing those folks, right? I have put out yard signs. I have made phone calls. I have knocked on doors. I have raised money for candidates at the local, legislative, congressional, Senate, and presidential levels from one end of the state to the other for 35 years. So I feel very comfortable knowing that when we have primaries, that whoever is going to come out of that primary with an R next to their name is who this party needs to support as we move forward. I think it's also very important, in addition to the grassroots, that we have a party that is capable of funding and financing those races. We have 11 million people in North Carolina. We have over 6 million registered voters. We have got to have the resources in place. We have got to have our digital communications in place, our traditional communications in place, our recruiting and training volunteers in place, and yes, the fundraising systems in place to be able to put all of that together in the field and help these candidates as we move forward a general election.
Okay, so I believe from listening to the feedback and traveling through 70 counties during this campaign this time, that what the party's really looking for is a leader, a proven leader, and a winner. Folks, other folks talk about doing this. I've done it. I've been an elected official in Lee County. I've run a county party effectively in a Democrat-dominated county, not unlike the state of North Carolina, and won elections. I win virtually all of my elections in Lee County, and the reason we do is because we're better than the Democrats. I know how to beat the Democrats. We also need somebody that understands information systems, and we haven't had that in the party for a long time. I have a unique talent, and I've been an executive, I've been a salesman, and I know how to sell information systems. I know how to design them and to make sure that they work effectively for you. I'm also very active among these candidates. I'm the only one that's really active in social media. I know how to use social media effectively and to make sure our headquarters is doing that. Folks, you want a leader, someone who's walked in your shoes. And I've walked in your shoes. I've put signs out till my hands bleed. I've gone door to door. I've worked at the polls, having to go to the bathroom, but can't leave because there's not someone there for relief, okay? I understand what it's like, okay? I understand what you go through. And I've gone door to door, and I've had dogs chase me away, okay? I mean, I've lived that. Folks, I tell you, you want someone who knows your pain, who feels your pain, who's lived in your shoes, who's walked the walk, and that knows how to resource your needs, and I'm that guy. I took 600 soldiers to combat in 1991 in Desert Storm. I brought 600 soldiers back alive and well to their families. Folks, that's the kind of leader you're looking for today. You're looking for a guy who can be a field general and a combat leader that can synchronize the resources that he has available to achieve victory. And that's what we did. The artillery and the armor and the infantry, they don't like each other, but they work together effectively. And I know how to synchronize those resources in the Republican Party. I can get everyone on parallel paths, even people that believe differently. I can get them aimed at the enemy, and it's not us. It's the leftists that are trying to take over this country. That's what the party needs right now. They need someone that has all of those tools and talents, that's ready to lead this party and ready on day one, okay? And folks, we talk about putting a digital studio in the headquarters. I've already done the site survey. I've already found the studio, and I'm ready to install it in June of this year, okay? I've already been arranging for fundraisers for our candidates. I've already started it. Justice Newby has one August the 26th in Lee County. And others around the state. I've already collaborated with almost all of the appeals court and Supreme Court candidates about synchronizing their fundraisers, building common infrastructure around the state to distribute their materials. I'm already working on it, folks. There's no lost time. When General Patton in World War II got to get the order to go relieve Bastogne, he said, if I wait to get the order, we won't be able to get there in time to save the 82nd. Or the 101st. What did he do? He got them moving before the election, or before, in his case, the decision to come down. And when Bradley came to him and said, folks, Patton, how long is it going to take you to get your forces moving? He said, they're already on the move. And that's what we got to do, folks. We got to hit the ground running in June. After this election, I'll be in Raleigh on day one, on June the 10th, and we'll go right to work as if we never missed a beat. We're going to raise the funds that we need to run this party, and we're going to have a success in the municipal elections here this fall, in the special elections this fall, and in 2020, reelecting our president, putting Dan Forrest in the governor's mansion, and putting Paul Newby as the Chief Justice of the state Supreme Court.
I just wanted to say thank you, gentlemen, for coming. I certainly appreciate it. Personally, it was refreshing for me to have a solution-oriented debate, and the war reference is obviously very fitting considering D-Day is on this Thursday, the 75th anniversary, and we appreciate all that you guys are doing across the state. I know that it's a lot of work, and Aaron is going to close out with some comments.
All right, thank you everybody for coming. First of all, whether you're on Facebook Live joining us, we appreciate you coming to watch us via Facebook Live, and everybody out in the audience. So we thought about, first of all, thank you all for coming over the dinner hour and sort of skipping your dinner time. So we got you a staple from Winston-Salem. Back in before Winston and Salem merged, the Moravians came in, and amongst many other things, they established some great desserts, cookies, Moravian sugar cake. So
all right.
That is what we got you. Eat.
Oh, sweet.
So do not
Thank you
eat
so
it
much.
all at once.
Yeah.
We, again, thank you so much for coming. We look forward to seeing you on Saturday for the vote. Everyone, please come to the convention. We're excited about being there. Thank you, thank you, thank you again. We look forward to working with you in the future.